Joining me right now is Ohio Congressman and House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan. Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for being here this morning.
Good to be with you.
First, tell me what you're expecting from James Biden, what you think is most important to get into with him.
Well, I actually think this entire story is a three-chapter story. I tell people there's what happened with the Biden family before Joe Biden's candidate for president. Then there's what took place during the campaign while he's actually a candidate. And then, of course, what's happened since he's been president. And I think we'll focus on James Biden. He was involved in the pre-candidate stuff, the chapter that I call the money, the business, the brand. 20 different companies, over $20 million coming into Biden family members, all by selling access to the brand, as Devin Archer, Hunter Biden's business partner, told us. So I think we'll focus a lot on that aspect, because that's where Jim Biden was mostly involved with, whether it's this Chinese energy company, CEFC, or some other business deals he's involved with. And then we'll also, I think, touch on the others. Because, again, when he's candidate, it's the lies, the campaign, and the rigged election. And this is where the campaign worked with the 51 intel officials to lie to the country about the laptop, saying it was a Russian information operation. And then, of course, since Joe Biden's been president, it's really been the obstruction, the cover-up, and the sweetheart deal that David Weiss tried to get through, and all the things the Biden administration has done to make it tough for us to get to the facts and focus the Weiss investigation focus on, I think, covering up this entire Hunter Biden episode. Well, so we'll get into a lot of those things, but mostly it'll be on that first chapter, the money, the business, the brand.
Well, what about the chapter when Joe Biden was vice president? Is that the time that he was beginning the negotiating for CEFC, the Chinese company, while he was still vice president? Because the House Oversight Committee released key excerpts from Tony Bobulinski's transcribed interview. Bobulinski said, quote, the Chinese Communist Party, through its surrogate China Energy Company, successfully sought to infiltrate and compromise Joe Biden and the Obama-Biden White House. He also said that the effort started in 2015 and did not stop until CEFC Chairman Yi was detained. So this was when Joe Biden was actually vice president. In another portion of that testimony, Bobulinski tells lawmakers that he once asked James Biden, quote, aren't you guys concerned that if Joe does run for president of the United States in the future, that you guys are doing business directly with the Chinese? So, Chairman, can you tell us about that and what else you learned from Tony Bobulinski's testimony?
Yeah. Hunter Biden and his business associates were working with CEFC trying to put together a deal. It didn't actually get put together until after Joe Biden leaves the vice presidency, but it was shortly thereafter. And frankly, the deal didn't get sealed. The agreement didn't get finalized until Joe Biden shows up at the lunch at the Four Seasons and does a quick drop-by, but he presents to the entire group. And then a few weeks later, Hunter Biden gets $3 million sent to him from CEFC. So Joe Biden was involved, I think, in closing the deal, and that's exactly what Tony Bobulinski testified to last week when we had him in for a deposition.
Well, I want you to tell me a little about the strategy they used for CEFC in terms of getting paid, because there is a very detailed article in Politico about how James Biden used his name, his family name, Biden, to promote AmeriCorps, get money from AmeriCorps, and then the company collapsed. But in this article, it goes through how they set up the structure, that he wanted to give his brother equity in AmeriCorps, that he wanted to install his brother perhaps on the board, or he was going to be on the board. They had offered to secure capital from investors in the Middle East, according to what James Biden was saying, according to this Politico article. Did they use the same structure in terms of what they wanted out of CEFC as they did with AmeriCorps?
Yeah, it sure seems similar, because remember, there's this now somewhat famous email from James Gilliar to Hunter Biden and copied some of his business partners. And in that email, they talk about how the percentages are going to be broken down for this deal with CEFC. And it's 20% for Hunter Biden, 20% for Gilliar, 20% for Rob Walker, 20% for Hunter Biden. And then it talks about money for Jim Biden and 10% held by Hunter Biden for Joe Biden. So it looks like the same kind of similar strategy for the big guy, right? And everyone, it was funny. Rob Walker, when we deposed him, we asked him, "Who's the big guy?" Well, I don't know who that is, but everyone knows who the big guy is, for goodness sake. So it looks like it was a similar thing that they were trying to do with AmeriCorps, like they were trying to do with CEFC. Turns out both of them actually fell through and didn't work, even though the Bidens did get some money from both entities.
I believe Tony Bobulinski confirmed to you that Joe Biden was the big guy.
Yeah, he sure did. Yeah, and anyone with common sense can see the email and knows what that references. But you know, we had one witness who said, "Oh, I don't know who it is," and it just made no sense to us. I think he does know, but didn't tell us when he was in for his deposition.
So, I mean, it's interesting that you've got the AmeriCorps situation, and the same tactics are used with a different set of people for the Chinese company, CEFC. I guess critics of this entire investigation are going to point to Mr. Smirnoff and this FBI agent who has now been indicted. He was your big whistleblower who initially said, yeah, Burisma executives told me you got to give $5 million to one Biden and $5 million to the other Biden. And now we understand he lied. Is that what you believe?
Yeah, look, we just know what the FBI said, but we also know what the FBI initially said. They initially said that he was credible, that they had used him for a number of years. I think for 14 years he's been a confidential human source for the FBI, had been paid. I mean, remember when we tried to get this document, we were told, oh, this guy is so important, we don't want to let this document out. We don't want to let this thing get public. You can only come view it in camera. We're not going to make it public. And now we find out that they've indicted the guy. I think it's interesting. You know, here's a guy who lied about and gave false information about Joe Biden. He gets indicted. But when you have another confidential source, Christopher Steele, give false information about President Trump, the FBI keeps paying him. So it again seems like somewhat of a double standard to me. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, the FBI said he wasn't being square with the FBI when they recorded the 1023. We'll take them at their word, but we'd like to actually have a chance to talk to this individual as well.
You've sent a letter to the Department of Justice demanding documents from their investigation of former CEFC official Patrick Ho. Specifically, you're targeting an email that he sent to a Serbian politician, where he referenced the name of an individual who the DOJ had redacted because it would introduce a political dimension to this case. You're also hoping to set up an interview with the Deputy Assistant to the President, Amos Hochstein, planning to ask about his work with a lobbying firm that Hunter Biden recommended to Burisma. Tell us about that, Mr. Chairman.
Well, this is the lobbying firm is Blue Star Strategies. We've deposed Ms. Tramontano, one of the principals there at that firm, along with Sally Painter, who we'll talk with here in a couple weeks. They met with Amos Hochstein back during this whole Burisma issue. So we'd just like to talk to Mr. Hochstein. He has been deposed. Senator Johnson's team deposed him a few years ago, but we think it's important we talk to him again. He now works in the White House. At the time, a few years ago, he worked at the State Department. So we think he's an important guy to get some information from, and we're going to talk to him. Patrick Ho is just a guy who got in trouble for bribing individuals, has been indicted, and was part of CEFC. So we want to know some of the information surrounding this individual as well.
We discussed this FBI informant Smirnoff, and he's been released from custody. Of course, he was indicted for allegedly lying to investigators about the business, the $5 million each. The Department of Justice now is accusing Smirnoff of having extensive ties to Russia intelligence. Hunter Biden's lawyers are also claiming that Smirnoff tainted special counsel David Weiss's probe. They're asking a judge to dismiss this tax case in California. Your thoughts?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I was surprised that I don't believe David Weiss had even approached the FBI, looked at this issue with this confidential human source. I'm not sure he had done that until he's named special counsel. You know, they've had this investigation going for 4.5, 5 years, so we'll have to see how that all shakes out. What I do know is, again, with Christopher Steele, who gives false information about President Trump to the FBI, he continues to get paid. With this Smirnoff guy, he gives false information to the FBI about the Bidens, and he gets indicted. Doesn't seem to me to be the same standard. But again, we'll have to wait and see.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to just detail for us what you believe is the most egregious here, and what is the evidence that you feel that Joe Biden, in fact, did participate in all of this? I mean, it seems pretty obvious, but you still have the Democrats, including Democrats in Congress, your colleagues, who say there's nothing here, particularly after the Smirnoff indictment.
The Smirnoff indictment doesn't change 4 fundamental facts relative to Burisma. Hunter Biden gets put on the board, gets paid a lot of money, $1 million a year. Fact 2, Hunter Biden's not qualified to be on the board. He said it himself when he was doing an interview, I think, with ABC News. Fact number 3, the executives at Burisma asked Hunter Biden to weigh in because they're under pressure from the prosecutor. Fact number 4, Joe Biden goes to Kyiv and fires the prosecutor, and he does so by leveraging, conditioning the release of our tax money on the firing of the prosecutor, applying the pressure to the company his son sat on the board of and made $1 million a year from. Those are facts that do not change, and it's a tale as old as time. You got a politician who does certain things, those actions benefit his family financially, and then there's an effort to cover it up, and that's what we've been working on this Congress, particularly the Judiciary Committee, what we believe is the cover-up, the sweep it under the rug investigation that David Weiss was running, and we know that's the case because he tried to get the sweetheart deal past the judge, Judge Norika, and she said no to it. She said she'd never seen anything like this. So that to me is the fundamental facts, and then all this other stuff, the money, the business, the brand, the lies, the campaign, the sweetheart deals, the rigged, all that's part of this deception. But those 4 fundamental facts with what Joe Biden did when he was the vice president, I think are central to the whole story.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we'll be watching your work. We so appreciate your time this morning. Thank you, sir.